Yes, welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast. My name is Connor Moran, and basically, I'm going to go through the team lists for week 2 of the preseason challenge in the NRL for season 2026. And I'm going to go through, I won't go through every single player, but I'll go through the players that I find really interesting being named in a certain position. And I'll be really interested to see what the coaches and the players are thinking and what the fans are thinking as well. So leave me in a comment what you're thinking after these team lists have been revealed. Some teams are much stronger than others, so going to be a really interesting weekend of rugby league, I reckon. So let's go through the Dolphins and the Titans. They kick off 8 p.m. on Thursday night, February 12th at KO Stadium at Redcliffe. For me, they've named Jake Averillo at fullback. I reckon he's definitely a backup fullback if the hammer goes down. Could they move Herbie Farnworth to fullback? They could, but defensively, I just think Herbie Farnworth is really important to stay in that centre position. Selwyn Cobbo can also play in that fullback position, but they've named him in the centres here. 2, Jermaine Asako. 3, Selwyn Cobbo. So he's been named in the centres, which probably will indicate that he definitely can start there. He could also start in that number 5 jersey as well, as I know there's Jack Bostock is injured, so he's injured for the opening half of the year, I'm pretty sure. Brad Schneider's been named in the number 6 jersey for this weekend, or this Thursday night for the Dolphins, so he's had an interesting career. I think he pretty sure he debuted at the Canberra Raiders in 2022, played the first half of that season that year in the number 7 jersey because Jamal Fogarty came to the club, got injured, had an ankle injury from memory. Brad Schneider came in, did a really solid job for Canberra in that opening half of the year, and he lines up alongside Isaiah Katoa, which I'm interested to see how he goes. High hopes on this young kid. I reckon he's just going to be one of the best halfbacks the game has ever seen. I know it's a huge prediction, but I just think what we've seen from him is absolutely fucking unbelievable. Number 8, Francis Molo. He'll play a fair bit of first grade this year, I reckon. Tom Gilbert, interesting to see that he's named in that number 10 jersey. I never knew where Tom Gilbert would line up in a trial match, whether it be the 10, 11, 12, 13. Was he going to play front row, edge, lock forward, or was he going to come off the bench? Now, I understand that this isn't a full strength first grade squad for the Dolphins, but there's a lot of experience in there as well. Interesting to see Oren Keeley named in that number 12 jersey as well. And Morgan Knowles, who Jimmy Graham from the bye round speaks very highly of. James Graham played Super League for St Helens with Morgan Knowles, and I first saw him play for England last year in the Ashes series. And I thought he was really impressive off the bench, coming on and adding a lot of aggression in that defensive line, rushing up and reading the defence really, really well. Morgan Knowles apparently is a really, really good player that many predict will fit nicely into the NRL. On the bench, Felice Kafusi, 14. I probably think he will start. He will play from the bench this year, I reckon. I think they've just got, they've got Canelli Lemu at second row. They've got so many options in that 4-pack. I just think Felice Kafusi, possibly his final year, definitely in his last couple of years at least in the NRL, but still a really, really good player. But it wouldn't surprise me if he just comes on from the bench. He can cover front row, edge forward, and if they're really short, lock forward, but I don't think they'll need to. Number 15, Thomas Flegler. This will be his first game of first grade. I understand it's not technically an NRL regular season game, but it will be his first game since 2023. So great to see Thomas Flegler come back into the game. 2023, the Dolphins' first year. I think he played the opening few games. I'm pretty sure from memory. He's missed out on a lot of football, Tom Flegler. So great to see him back in there. The rest of the lineup guys are, a lot of Queensland Cup players, reserve grade players that if I'm to be honest, I don't know will see overly much first grade when you currently look at the depth that they've got. They've still got Jeremy Marshall-King coming back from injury. Max Plath, he's fighting to be fit for round 1. So going to be interesting to see how the Dolphins go in this trial match against the Gold Coast Titans, who don't have an overly strong lineup in this game, but Jalen de Groot, he's naming up at fullback. I thought when Desi Hasler put him at fullback last year for a few games, I actually thought he did a really good job in that number 1 jersey. And then Hasler moved him to the wing where I don't think he was as good. I thought fullback's definitely his position. So whether or not he'll play much first grade this year, I probably doubt it, to be honest, because, you've got AJ Brimson. You've got a lineup at fullbacks there. Keanu Kinney, who will probably start the season in that number 1 jersey. And, of course, you've got Jaden Campbell, who's also an option there. And respectively, I think those three are probably better options than Jalen de Groot at this point of their careers. In his career, he's still quite young. Max Feagai, he will be starting in the centres in this game. Lachlan Ilias, really interesting to see him wear the number 6 jersey in this game. I thought that they bought him to be the halfback. He has only really played halfback in his career. Debuted at South Sydney Rabbitohs, led them to a prelim final in 2022. Number 7 jersey, Lachlan Ilias. He is normally a number 7 and played the first half of the season for the Dragons last year. But number 6, interesting to see what they're going to do there. Mo Fotuaika lines up in that number 8 jersey. Now, what really interests me in this lineup for the Gold Coast Titans is Luke Summerton has been named in the number 9 jersey, and Sam Verrills, the other hooker, who wore the number 9 most of last year for the Gold Coast Titans under Desi Hasler, Josh Hannay has named him in the number 14 jersey. Now, there's big raps on Luke Summerton. I think he's around 25 years old, and he's come from the Penrith system. He played a game last year for the Penrith Panthers against the Bulldogs, and it was that game where Penrith rested heaps of players towards the back end of the year, and Luke Summerton played in that game. I thought he was one of Penrith's best in that game. They got beaten convincingly because they were up. It was a New South Wales Cup side, basically, up against a first grade side. That game where Ivan Cleary rested so many players. But for me, Luke Summerton's a tough guy. He reminds me of Mitch Kenny. The service from dummy half is fucking outstanding. And Sammy Verrills is a really good player. But when Desi Hasler first got to the Gold Coast Titans in season 2024, Sammy Verrills was actually playing from the bench, and I thought he did a really good job in that number 14 jersey back then a couple of years ago as well. Clace Haas lines up in the number 10 jersey. Cooper Bye, lots of talk about Cooper Bye. He's actually only played one first grade game for the Gold Coast Titans, and he's just re-signed. So Melbourne almost got him, and he decided to re-sign. And you look at the Titans in season 2026, and I'll go through it with their season preview in the next few weeks. But what I find really interesting is since Josh Hannay has gotten to the club, Tino re-signs, Cooper Bye re-signs, and they've got these players. Jaden Campbell re-signs long-term, I think till season 2030. So these players now, I feel like players now want to be there. Both Firma, what a fucking player he is. One of the most underrated second rowers in the game. He's re-signed, and there was talk about him leaving about 6 months ago. So Josh Hannay has, I feel like already before ball has been kicked off, there's a culture now at the Gold Coast Titans where players seem to want to be there, and it seems like a happy place to be. And I really love the Gold Coast Titans. I'd love to see them do really well in season 2026 under Josh Hannay. Curtis Morin from the Bulldogs, he lines up in that number 15 jersey. He can cover lock forward, hooker if they're really short, but they've got Sammy Verrills on the bench. Basically, Max Bradbury there in the 19 jersey. Dean Remia, I'm sorry, I'm bad at pronouncing that. He's come from the Broncos, I'm pretty sure. Wasn't able to get a crack there much at all. He's just got too many players in front of him in the Broncos system, but wouldn't surprise me if he gets at least a couple of games for the Gold Coast Titans in season 2026 if they really struggle with injury. Let's go on to the next game, the Canberra Raiders and the Melbourne Storm. This will be Friday at 5:30. Let's go. I'm going to rush through this because that just took 8 minutes and I just went through one game. Canberra Raiders, Chevy Stewart. We know him. He's played, I think, maybe one game at Suncorp Stadium for Canberra in season 2024, and he really struggled, but hey, it was his debut. Tamale in this game, Savelio Tamale lines up in the centres, which I find really interesting. Jed Stewart on the sting. Dane Laurie, who they've bought from the Penrith Panthers, who was before that at the Tigers, and before that was at Penrith again. So Dane Laurie, look, he's named in the 7 here. He can play in the halves and, of course, fullback. I reckon Dane Laurie will see a lot of first-grade football. And if there's an injury in the halves, I reckon, Kobe Black's probably the next man up if Sanders starts the season, gets injured. But Dane Laurie, no doubt, can fill position, that's for sure. You can put him fullback, wing, centre, halves. He'll do a job and a good job for you. So I reckon he's a good little player. We're interested to see Owen Paddy start in the number 9 jersey. Obviously, Jaden Brayley's moved to the Canberra Raiders, and Owen Paddy for me is an outstanding player. He will be the future number 9, long-term 9 of this club. I want to see how he starts, and I want to see him in that number 9 jersey. And Tom Starling had the best year of his career in season 2025, but Owen Paddy for me, I want to see him wear that number 9 a fair bit through the season if something was to happen through to Tom Starling or anybody else. I just think that Jaden Brayley, I wonder if Ricky Stewart would go Brayley and keep Paddy off the bench, but Paddy is the future 9. So interested to see him. Basically, guys, Sebastian Chris off the bench. I don't know what's doing there, but basically maybe they just want to ease him in. Perhaps Sebastian Chris could play a bit of back row. I don't know, but he gives me that impression. He's just so strong. Let's go to the Melbourne Storm, guys. We know Marion Save. I'm pretty sure he's the player that had the big goggles on last year. He had an eye injury. David Moali from South Sydney. He's studying the number 8 jersey. Jack Hetherington from the Newcastle Knights. We've never seen the best of Jack Hetherington. When he was coming through the ranks at Penrith, there was so much talk about him being the next big thing at the Penrith Panthers and never really progressed. He then went to the Newcastle Knights, never really progressed. In fact, I think he got quieter there. But apparently, out of the Melbourne Storm, they've been telling journalists that Jack Hetherington is absolutely fucking killing it pre-season training. In fact, he's been one of their best. Now, for me, the most important player to watch in this game for the Melbourne Storm is Atavalu Lasati. He is tipped to replace Eli Katoa, who is, of course, having a year off due to those concussions from that terrible concussion in the Pacific Championship. I hope he's doing well. That's a huge loss, isn't it? But I feel like he's the player. They've named him there for a reason. I think it was between him and Joe Chan. Joe Chan he's played at edge forward, actually, in the last couple of pre-season challenges for the Melbourne Storm. Really good player, Joe Chan. But for me, Atavalu Lasati, apparently he's trained the house down at the Melbourne Storm. He's going to be one to watch. Trent Loureiro, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his last name. The Queensland lock forward in the decider. I'm pretty sure he wore that number 13. He's been at 2 grand finals now in that number 13 jersey for the Melbourne Storm. Really solid player. Discipline not great. He's actually suspended for the opening 2 games of the season, I believe. So it'll be good for him to get a run under his belt. Looking at the rest of these players here, I don't think they'll play much first grade in that from number 14 down to 26. Let's go to the next game, which will be Friday at 8 p.m. between the Cowboys and the Penrith Panthers. Pretty strong lineup here, I've got to say, for the Cowboys, and really interested too. So let's go fullback Scott Drinkwater, and on the wings, they've got Braden Burns and Murray Talangi. Now, I did a trial review of the game in the podcast earlier today of the trial between the Cowboys and the Bulldogs, and I thought Robert Derby was one of their best. I thought he was really, really impressive. So for me, the fact that they've named Burns in the back line, would tell me that perhaps he's probably going to get the first crack on the wing. And they've got Jackson Purdue in the centres, Jake Clifford at 6, and Tom Dearden at 7. That, to me, would suggest that they're probably going to go that direction. Tom Chester, the man to probably miss out in that back line. Zach Lavert, fantastic player, did his ACL a couple of years ago, but a few rounds before that, early in that 2024 season, he was absolutely fucking carving up. I had him in NRL Fantasy too. He was fucking doing a good job for me. Cohen Hess and Jason Tomalolo in the front row. Griffin Neame is expected to miss the opening rounds of the season. I think he's a fucking massive loss in that Vegas game, to be honest. Reed Marnie, number 9 jersey. Helam Lukey, Sam McIntyre, and Ruben Cotter in that number 13 jersey. Now, this is great. So Sonny Luke in that 14 jersey, I think he's going to be a really good buy for the Cowboys. Thomas McKaylee, Matt Lodge, and John Bateman will line up on the bench. I reckon that's probably the way they're going to go. Mason Barber in 19, who we saw last week, was fucking outstanding for them in that fullback position. Kai O'Donnell in the number 20 jersey. Jackson Paulo, Robert Derby, 23. So, look, I reckon that 1 to 17 is probably how they're going to line up. Without Griffin Neame there, they're probably going to go that direction of Cohen Hess and Tomalolo in the front row. Really interesting there. We look at the Penrith Panthers. They've just gone a very, real reserve grade side here. They're not playing any of their first graders. Jesse McLean, we know about him. Sione Finau. Kurt Fours, look, there's a lot of players here that I've never heard of, if I'm to be completely honest. But I've got no doubt they're all fucking guns because they're coming through the Penrith system. And I reckon there's 27 players named here. I've heard of 2, and I reckon in 3 years' time I'd know fucking almost every single one of them. That's how good their talent squad is. Now let's go to the New Zealand Warriors versus the Manly Warringah Seagulls. and this is not at Brookvale Oval. This is at McLean Park in Napier. Saturday, February 14th at 1:40 p.m. The New Zealand Warriors, they line up Ali Leiatua in the centres. Laka Halasima, really interested to see him in that number 4 jersey and interested to see if they start him in the centres. It would not surprise me because they played him a lot in second row last year, but off the bench especially. For me, I think he's got to be in that starting 13 for what he produced last year. He's like a Sonny Bill Williams when Sonny Bill started his career. He played in the centres. He's got that built. He's got the height. He's got the strength. He's so lean. Such a fucking outstanding player. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck on the wings. Tanner Boyd. Really interested to see how Tanner Boyd goes in that 7 jersey because Luke Metcalf apparently is out until round 7. Expected to come back around round 7, round 8 in the 2026 season. Tanner Boyd, fantastic player at halfback. Interested to see how he goes because he will be the halfback to start the first half of the season for the New Zealand Warriors in season 2026. He's a great player, Tanner Boyd, in my opinion. He's not your superstar. He's not in your top half of fucking halves, but he reminds me of Kyle Flanagan in terms he's got a decent kicking game on. He can direct a side around. He's not going to be that superstar half, but he can do a job and a consistent job for you. Wade Egan in the number 9 jersey, and I know Kyle Flanagan cops a lot, but if you watched him closely last year, I thought he had a fucking pretty good year, to be honest with you. I thought he, proved a lot of people wrong at certain points of the season. Jackson Ford lines up in that number 10 jersey. Mitch Barnett, I think he's expected to return around round 3, round 4. I heard the other day. So interested to see how he goes when he comes on. Aaron Clark, for me, fucking outstanding lock forward. He's just gone from an average NRL player that can play hooker, lock, fill in at prop forward, a bench player, good number 14, to an elite lock forward. What he did for the Warriors last year was beyond unbelievable. Sam Healy, I want to talk about him. He's the number 14. For me, he's just a gun future dummy half. Like, he's already a gun dummy half, but I really want to see how he goes. He played a few games for the Warriors last year in that number 9 jersey. Really, really interested to see how he goes. Number 17, Kalis Fatialofa. For me, he's around 18, 19 years old. From what I've heard and from what I've read, there are massive raps from the Warriors camps saying that this kid is unfucking believable. And apparently, according to the Rugby League Guru, he said that Andrew Webster, he found out from Andrew Webster or a source in the New Zealand camp that Webster wants to play a lot of these younger guys in season 2026. And that's an aim for the Warriors this year. He wants to produce a lot of these younger guys coming through, which would suggest to me that young Kalis will probably get a fair crack at first grade in season 2026. The rest of the players, guys, I'm not going to name them because I haven't heard of them respectfully. Let's go to the Manly Seagulls. Number 1, Blake Metcalf. 2, Blake Wilson from the Dogs. I reckon, he could play some first grade this year. Definitely. I reckon he'll play a few games. Navrut Willett. I'm a big fan of Navrut Willett. He's fucking carved up in the trials last year for Manly. And this is what I've been waiting for, ladies and gentlemen. For the first time in my life, I'm going to say this. Number 6, Tony Large. Number 7, Joey Walsh. Fuck, I am excited as a Manly fan. And there is this young kid called Simeone Leifai. Fuck me. The things I'm hearing about him, he's 19 years old. He is a beast. Fantastic to see how he goes. Paul Bryan apparently is a really good young player coming through the ranks there at Manly. Caleb Navale starting in that 13 jersey for Manly. I thought when he played last year, him and Bullimore off the bench were just absolutely fucking outstanding. I think he'll play a lot of first grade for Manly, and if he doesn't, I'd be really disappointed in the coaching staff because that's how fucking good this young Fijian is. He played for Fiji in the Pacific Championships, and he was absolutely outstanding. And for Manly on the interchange, I want to talk about this young kid, Zadis Muagu Tutua. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that. I will try. I've never heard him say the name. I've never heard anyone else actually pronounce it. So I do apologise. But this young Zadis, number 14 for Manly, apparently he's a hooker. Apparently there are massive raps on this kid. And apparently they can see a future where the spine will be 1, Lehi Hopewadi, 6, Tony Large, 7, Joey Walsh, and 9, Zadis. So it's going to be absolutely fantastic to see him play dummy half off the bench in this game. Let's go to Saturday at 3:50 p.m. The West Tigers, Heath Mason, we know him. Hemasi Makasini in the centres apparently is an absolute gun. Jock Madden at 7, coming back from the Broncos. He was at the Tigers before that. Tristan Hope made his debut last year. He was about 28 years of age and stuck it out. Finally, got his first grade debut and did a fucking good job in that game too. Charlie Murray at lock forward, going through the other players here. Don't think anyone's really going to know these players. There's a fair few I don't know here either. For the Roosters, Junior Tupou on the wing. Number 2, Tommy Talau, centre. Number 4, I reckon he'll play a lot of football this year for the Roosters. I'm surprised Manly let him go. I can't understand why they let him go. I thought he was absolutely terrific when he did play for Manly. Hugo Savala in the number 6 jersey. Now there's this young 7 coming through, Toby Rodwell. Massive raps on this young kid. They're talking that he could be a future half with Sam Walker down the track, as Hugo Savala is quite a big body, so he wouldn't surprise me if he ends up going into the second row position or lock forward position later stages of his career, and Rodwell ends up in the halves alongside Sam Walker when Daly Cherry Evans retires. Who knows? I'm just, going with what I'm predicting here. Celesi for Teddy, absolutely fucking unbelievable when he played last year. Nat Butcher and Siwa Wong, so much potential. Siwa Wong, I thought when he played last year, he was really, really good, but there are massive raps on this young kid. I want to see how he goes in the trial match, and I'd love to see him get a starting spot somewhere in the lineup for the Roosters this year at some stage. All right, the Newcastle Knights and the Bulldogs, Saturday, 6 p.m. Let's go through the Knights. Fletcher Sharp at fullback, interesting. Dominic Young and Greg Marzu. On the Stings, the centres, Fletcher Hunt, Bradman Best. They're not going to play Dane Gagai in the starting lineup here. Dylan Brown, Sandon Smith lining up. That's how I expect they'll line up in round 1 with those halves. I reckon they'll go 6 Brown, 7 Smith. I wouldn't do it, but who am I? I'm not in the Newcastle camp. I just think Fletcher Sharp needs to be in the fucking starting lineup, and we all know he won't start at fullback in the Vegas game. So going to be interesting to see. I reckon they probably will line up with 6 Brown, 7 Smith, and I really like that Dylan Brown. There's talk about him not starting in the 7. It'll be either Sandon Smith or Fletcher Sharp. So Dylan Brown is not a 7. So good on Justin Holbrook for coming in and making that decision. But he's already confirmed that Fletcher Sharp will be in the starting lineup, and he said he won't be wing. So who knows? Or maybe he's just playing games, and maybe I'm falling for it. Jacob Saifidi, Tyson Frizzell up front, Phoenix Crossland at dummy half, Dylan Lucas. For me, he needs to play State of Origin for New South Wales. If it's not this year, I reckon it'll be next year off the bench, because he can cover centre as well, guys, as we all know. A fucking gun in that centre position when he does cover there, and edge forward. Really, really good player. Thomas Cant, I thought he did a really good job for the Knights last week in that number 11 jersey, and Matt Croker at lock forward. Tyson Gamble, 14. Jermaine McEwen, want to see this kid play in the second row position. I reckon he'll start for the Newcastle Knights this year. Massive raps on this young kid, replacing Kai Pearce-Paul at the Newcastle Knights. Again, it's be interested to see how he goes. Brodie Jones, James Schiller, Cole McCarthy. Look, there's some players there that'll get a good go in this trial match as well, trying to fight out for some positions there for the Bulldogs. Lining up pretty strong. Connor Tracy, Jonathan Suo on the wings, Bronson Sherry and Stephen Crichton in the centres, Inari Tuala on the wing, Matt Burton, Galvin in the halves, King, Haywood and Harry Hayes up front, Viliami Kikau and Preston on the edge, and locking the scrum will be Jamin Salmon. Now, this is really interesting. I said last week after the before the Bulldogs trial in my preview for that game, Sam Hughes, if he plays well in this trial match, which I thought he was really, really good in, he will be fighting for a bench spot. And right here, he's in a full-strength bench, in my opinion. 14, Kurt Mann, 15, Tilly Tupanua, 16, Sam Hughes, and 17, Josh Curran. And the fact that Curtis Morin played a lot from the bench on the Dogs last year, he's now gone to the Gold Coast Titans, which suggests to me that there is a position there available, and Sam Hughes, I reckon, is too good. I think he's a player that he's had some injury problems the last 24 months for the Canterbury Bulldogs, but I just think he's such a good player. He needs to be in that 17, but that's just my opinion. Sean O'Sullivan, Jake Turpin, I reckon they'll play some first grade this year, to be honest. There's talk about Sean O'Sullivan possibly starting the season in the 7 jersey. I don't think it'll happen. I reckon it'll be Galvin and Burton. Cooper Toy. Yep. So, yeah, they're the Jed Reardon as well for the Bulldogs in that number 24 jersey. So, going to be a good game, that one. Interested to see how that goes. Now, we've got the Charity Shield Saturday, February 14th at 8:10 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. So let's look at the Dragons lineup here. Fullback Gutherson, the wings Christian Torpolotu and Setu 2. Well, that would suggest to me that he's going to win that wing spot to start the season up against David Farley, who played in the centres last week, which suggested to me that they're probably not going to start him on the wing. Sully and Holmes in the centres. Setu 2 gets that 5 jersey. Really interested to see how he goes, Setu 2. I don't think he's cemented that wing spot yet. I think he'll start there, but big game for the young kid. He'll want to shine in this game. The first opportunity, Dragons fans, that we see Kyle Flanagan and Daniel Atkinson in the halves, Emre Gula, Damien Cook, and Toby Couchman. On the edges, Luciano Leilua, Jaden Sewer, and Hame Saleh will be locking the scrum. We all know that Jack de Belin is now gone to the Parramatta Eels, and Dylan Egan will be out for the opening rounds of the season. Hamish Stewart, Blake Laurie, Ryan Couchman, and Lockhart Jr., Pacifica Tonga on the bench. I reckon that's probably going to be their bench, actually, or a fair few players. Jacob Little. I think he's injured from what I heard the other day, so he might miss the opening few rounds of the season. You've obviously Cade Reed is in this game in the 22 jersey. He was outstanding in that halfback spot for the Dragons last week. David Farley, as I mentioned earlier, played centre. Be interested to see if he can get replace Setu 2 on the wing, or replace Tuipulotu, and see how they both go on the wings. Tyrell Sloan in the 18 jersey. These players will come on in the second half, you'd believe, and just replace those more experienced aging players such as Gutherson, Cook, and whatnot. For the Rabbitohs, Matt Duffy, welcome back to the NRL. He's had a stint there at the Super League. I think he last played in the NRL in season 2022 for the Canterbury Bulldogs. He's back now after a 3-year stint at the Super League. Did a good job there, apparently. Ashton Ward in the 6 jersey, and Jonah Glover. If you're a South Sydney fan, I reckon there's massive raps on this kid, and I reckon he could possibly start the season in the 7 jersey. So I want to see how Jonah Glover goes in this game. He'll be one I'll be watching. Peter Mamazoulis started the season in the 9 jersey last year for South Sydney Rabbitohs. A young player, he's had a fair few years of experience now, but sorry, I've got a fly in here. I keep fucking getting it out of the way. Thomas Fletcher, Max McCarthy, Bronson Garlick comes from the Melbourne Storm, lines up in the 13 jersey. 14, Jamie Humphries. I think that's a good decision. I think he's a 14 at the moment at this stage of his career. Started the season really well in that 7 jersey to start the season for South Sydney. I thought the second half of that season, he had an injury, came back. Second half of the season, I thought he was really quiet, to be honest. So I think, 14 too, he can come on and play as a hooker as well. So, but who knows, he could start 7, Brandon Smith 14 as well. They've got a lot of versatility and flexibility in this lineup, which I love as a fan that loves the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Tavita Totola, in the 15 jersey, Sean Kepi, former Manly Sea Eagles player, and Liam LeBlanc, Matthew Humphries, just going through the reserves there. Yep.